Hi, welcome back to the Biblical Preaching Podcast. And in this bite-sized episode, I want to run through 7 ways that we can be growing as a preacher, 7 areas for study, if you like. This past week, I had the privilege of being in Budapest with a group of preachers, and we were basically 48 hours together. And so many things came up, so many different aspects of preaching that we can learn and grow in. And so I just want to share these 7 with you. I'm not going to get into detail on them. There's probably 7 episodes at least here, but it gives us some thought, some things to consider at least. How can I grow as a preacher? So, number 1, the sermon preparation process. This is probably what we think of when we think of preaching textbooks. How do you go from text to sermon? And within that, of course, we can grow in terms of study skill, hermeneutics, understanding the text. We could think about the outlining of the sermon, clarifying the main idea, thinking through transitions and the content. So that's a massive one, isn't it? All the illustrations, all the different ways to work our way through a sermon and to be ready to go when Sunday comes. And so that's number 1, the sermon preparation process. Number 2, there's delivery. Our delivery does matter. Of course, if we only worked on delivery and had terrible content, that wouldn't make us a good preacher at all. But we can have very, very good content, and there could be something in our delivery that's messing it up, that's getting in the way, that's distracting people. And so thinking about delivery is important. It's something we can grow in. Watch yourself on video, see where you're distracting or struggling to connect with your listeners. And then you can improve it, whether that's eye contact, whether that's gesturing and different aspects of movement, whether it's voice and vocal variation. There's plenty to work on when it comes to delivery, and none of us are there yet. None of us have arrived. There's always more to grow in as a preacher when it comes to our delivery. So that's number 2. All right, number 3. What about the different scripture types? You can do an awful lot of preaching in just the epistles, just being very used to, very familiar with the letters and direct communication, which would include speeches as well. But what about narrative? There's an awful lot of narrative in the Bible. That's the biggest scripture type that we find. Old Testament, New Testament, there's a lot of narrative. It takes a different set of skills. We can learn to preach narrative more effectively. But what about poetry? There's the Psalms, but also the wisdom literature, most of the prophets. Poetry is significant too. And so developing our skill in different areas of the Bible is a whole field of study, and that's well worth leaning into and growing in. Number 4, I was just thinking about the fact that we can learn from experience. You find somebody who can preach well, spot something in their preaching that you like, and then ask them about it. Ask them how they do it. Ask them how they learn to do what they're doing, whatever that is, whether it's a certain way of handling scripture, whether it's some aspect of delivery, whether it's the coherence of the big idea or the clarity of thought, whatever it is. You look for someone who's good at something and you ask them lots of questions. It's kind of basic, it's kind of obvious, but actually, a lot of people don't do that. And so if we want to grow as a preacher, we can grow from other preachers. You can listen to preachers online and podcasts and sort of ask yourself, what are they doing well, and try to learn. But there's no substitute for finding somebody and speaking to them and hearing their thoughts, because sometimes their explanation will really make a difference. That's true in all areas of life, isn't it? We should find people who are good at something and ask. All right, but then that was number 4, wasn't it? So learning from experience. Number 5, there's different schools of thought when it comes to preaching. I've got all these books behind me on preaching, but they're not all the same. And so there's kind of the familiar camps, perhaps, that we sit in, that we're used to. I don't know what your background is, if you have one in this area. Certainly for me, I was raised, or I was trained, I should say, in the Big Idea School, the Haddon Robinson School of Preaching. And so that is kind of where I come from. That is my hermeneutical background, and, that affects my preaching. But also I've learned from the redemptive historical, the Christ-centered preaching approach of, say, Brian Chappell. And so I want to learn from that as well. And so depending which camp you've kind of settled in, go over to the other side and see what you can learn. I think there's benefits to be gained from both of those. They're based on different hermeneutical approaches to the text. They're based on some different assumptions, massively complementary, that work together really well. But just think about the different schools of thought when it comes to preaching. But then actually there's others too, ones that perhaps are less comfortable, but we can still learn from. There's different schools of preaching, such as narrative preaching, or probably more liberal background, but we can learn from it. We wouldn't want to learn everything from it necessarily. We certainly wouldn't want to go and live there and, make that our home camp. But there's a lot to be gained from going to different schools of preaching and seeing what they do well and seeing what can be incorporated in our preaching. Okay, so learn from the different schools of thought. That's number 5. Number 6, I think if we want to grow as a preacher, we don't want to just think about our preaching specifically. We also need to think about our underlying theology. Now, that sounds a bit intimidating, but honestly, it's kind of basic. The basics of our theology, our view of God, our view of humanity, our view of the problem and the solution. It's how we answer those questions that shape so much of what we do. The basic question of preaching could be, does my preaching point people to themselves, or does it point people to God? Is it theocentric, or is it me-centered? Honestly, if you start unpacking that theologically, it will definitely improve your preaching. And God-centered, Christ-centered, there's different ways of thinking about that. Is it, am I falling into a sort of legalism, a sort of self-pressure that I've got to be transformed by my own effort? Or am I recognizing that there's something going on that's redemptive in the text, something going on there in terms of a revelation of the person of God, so that hearts are drawn towards him? Am I preaching toward the heart, or toward the will, or toward the intellect? This is all theological, and we need to think through our theology on those basic questions. Who is God? What is he like? What does it mean to be a human? How do we operate? Are we will-centered? Are we heart-driven? What's sin? What's grace? That is the problem, the solution. So thinking through theology, learning, growing in that whole field is going to help us to grow as a preacher, as we're handling the Bible and communicating it to others. So number 6, underlying theology. And then number 7, similarly, we could think about our personal growth. We sort of touched on this already, but it's been quite specific in different areas and foci? Is that the right word? I think it is. Different foci of preaching. So we've thought about the sermon preparation process. We've thought about delivery, different scripture types, learning from experienced preachers, learning from the different schools of thought when it comes to preaching, thinking about our underlying theology. And so therefore, number 7, I suppose this is a catch-all, but it's actually not. It's an important one. Personal growth. How am I growing personally? Because I'm the preacher, right? It's not just this act of preaching that I'm doing, following some sort of process and, keeping it all at arm's length. Actually, when I preach, I preach. And so my life, my walk with God, my spirituality, my health in all areas will impact the way that I'm preaching. If I've got amazing preaching skill, but relationally I'm a mess, I'm not going to be a very good preacher. Okay, and so thinking through personal growth will help knock-on effect our preaching. All right, so growth happens, I think, in conversation more than anything. And so who are you in conversation with? You could think that through, pray that through. Lord, give me mentors, people that I can learn from, people that I can share with side by side, shoulder to shoulder, people that I can be pouring into. It's in the context of relationship that discipleship happens. And that's not just for beginning believers. It's still true for us today, no matter how long we've been walking with Jesus. And so think through conversation with others. Think through conversation with others via book. Okay, you can't just do that. You do need some actual humans, but it is a privilege, isn't it, to be able to interact with the thoughts of a Jonathan Edwards or a Martin Luther or a Richard Sibbes, or in modern, contemporary times, a Mike Reeves or a Dane Ortland, or whoever you find to be helpful. And so interacting with the author, even just as you read the book, thinking about it, arguing with it, questioning it, having that dialogue with the book can also be helpful. And of course, and I'll finish with this one, most importantly, the ongoing conversation with God. I wonder, when was the last time you spoke to God about your preaching? And I don't mean just help me with this message, or help me this Sunday, or thank you that went well. I mean, Lord, I'm taking a step back and I'm thinking about my preaching and I want to grow as a preacher. Here's what I'm thinking. Please lead me and show me areas you think I need to grow in. Please, if you dare say it, please grow me. Okay, and so praying in conversation with God, praying about your preaching. Okay, so there you have it, 7 areas for growth. I know I've missed some, but I wanted to have 7. It just felt biblical. So if you want to add more, please say, well, what about this area? And put it in the comments. That would be great. And just to finish, it's kind of an obvious one, an obvious Bible verse to sort of land our thoughts with. But 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 6, Paul writing to his mentee, is that the word? Writing to his protege who's taking over from him, really, as Paul's ministry is coming to an end and he's heading into a heavenly retirement soon. He writes to Timothy and he says, "For this reason, I remind you to fan into flame the gift of God." That's an amazing thought, isn't it? To fan into flame the gift of God. If we're gifted for preaching, okay, and I don't think there is a gift of preaching, that's another whole subject we could talk about, but whatever gifting God has given us that we're utilizing in the ministry of preaching, even if you've been preaching for 20, 30, 40 years, even if people are very positive and, thank you and talk about your giftedness, I think we still need to fan it into flame. There's a sense in which we can lean into what God has given us and prayerfully pursue growth in that area in order to be a good steward of that gift. And so that's my encouragement to you. There's always more to learn. If you're feeling a bit stale, maybe think through the 7 areas that I've mentioned in this video. Pick one and pursue it. Or maybe rotate through them. I don't know. There's so many options, but my point is there's always more to learn. There's always more ways to grow. And as I'm getting older, looking toward the latter half of my life and ministry, I kind of want to keep growing. I want to be one of those people that when they're 75 or 80 or whatever, I'm seeing something and saying, how can I learn that? How can I grow in that area? Those people inspire me, and I want to be one of them. So thanks so much for watching. Please do comment. Please do share these videos and audio podcasts, whatever format you're finding this in. Please share them with others so that we can get the word out about the Biblical Preaching Podcast.
Thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate every positive review, like, share, and comment. And thank you for praying for us. We hope you will join us again next time on the Biblical Preaching Podcast.